Samuel L. Jackson in a kilt. What, you need more than that to convince you to watch a film? Stay tuned then, I guess. Hi, my name's Drew and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. Today I'm talking about one of my favourite films, which I haven't seen in such a long time, called The 51st State. Now, if you're particularly in America, you will not likely find this film easily because in America it was not called The 51st State, it was called is called Formula 51. The name 51st State refers to the idea of the UK being the USA's 51st state, as in the USA sort of lording it over the UK, bypassing the UK as if it were just not a full country but just another state. So that's where it comes from. Why they thought that people in the USA would find this offensive, I don't know. I think it's hilarious because it also really describes well what's going on in the film, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, so this film came out in 2001 and I'll be honest, I think the last time I saw it must have been something like 12 or 13 years ago. It kind of slipped my mind. I was reminded of it when I started putting together the intro for my in-flight entertainment series, which is not dead, by the way. I just need to find time to do the next entry. Those videos take a bit longer to make. And if you were really keen-eyed, you will have spotted the cover of The 51st State, the poster, in that very intro. So ever since I saw this film for the first time when I was a teenager, I saw it with some friends of mine, fell in love with it immediately, watched it many times, and now again for the first time in over a decade. I now of course have quite a different life experience. A lot of time has passed. Not only that, but I now have this channel where I review films, so I look at things a bit more critically. And while I am sorry to say that there are quite a few things in this film that do not hold up, certainly don't, the film in and of itself I feel is still a very hilarious ride, and if you just want a fun movie you should definitely check it out. What is it about? Well, to keep it brief and as unspoilery as usual, Sam Jackson is the main role in this film. He plays a chemist who works for a drug lord. That drug lord is none other than Meatloaf, and he refers to himself in the third person as the Lizard. So Sam Jackson's character is called Elmo McElroy. He works for the Lizard and he wants out of the game. So he tries to find a way to get out of the game. He devises this revolutionary new drug which is 51 times stronger, more addictive, etc, than heroin, cocaine, etc. That's also where the 51 comes from, so it refers to that as well, but also again to the UK-US relationship. And so he has this drug and he's trying to just do one last big deal to get out of the game, and that's what the film is essentially about. He is unable to do that in the USA, so he travels to the UK, to Liverpool to be more exact, and this is where he reluctantly teams up with Robert Carlyle's character, who is called Felix DeSouza, typical British name of course. And the two of them join forces and try to find a buyer who is interested in this revolutionary new drug. As you can imagine, there are many parties involved in this whole thing. You have the police, you have other criminals that are interested, you of course have the aforementioned Lizard, who also obviously will not want to let his chemist go that easily. So you've got all these parties, and obviously we go from one situation to the next, gradually getting quite ridiculous, I will admit. I won't spoil how it goes of course, and whether they succeed or not, or what exactly happens. That is the basic gist of it. And luckily this film was kept rather short, so it really doesn't overstay its welcome. It works rather well because you're moving really fastly from one place to the next, and you've got all sorts of snowballing situations, and that really works well with just how the film was written. That being said, while we're staying on how the film was written, one thing you absolutely need to talk about are the characters. Now, while a lot of them are rather likeable, there is no doubt that these are really incredibly ludicrous characters at times. They feel like they've been taken out of a completely exaggerated comic book. So I would even go as far as to say that Samuel L. Jackson's character Elmo McElroy is probably even the most normal of the bunch. You've got Felix DeSouza, played by Robert Carlyle, who is just over the top. He's basically there to be the Liverpudlian, so he's he represents this British side, I'll call it. And it's just, I don't have anything against swearing, but it's taken so far here. It's just comical. It's really, it's such a distraction. And just the character himself, his motivation throughout the film is he wants tickets to the Liverpool-Manchester United match, and that's it basically. And that's his main talking point. There are people dying all around, and he's focused on this football game. While I understand that football can be quite religious for some people, it just felt silly, really. You know, there was just this, and beyond that, no characterization really. Elmo McElroy also has not really got much to his character, and neither do any of the tons and tons of other people we have in this film. So there's quite a lack there. So it's all just about the action in the sense of, you know, we're moving from one place to the next and what's happening, etc. Character-wise, there's not really much here in this film. As far as the story goes, I felt it was quite interesting. While my research showed that the idea was already formed in 1994, it is quite hard not to try and compare this film to Guy Ritchie's films. At that time, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels had already been released, and even Snatch. So while Snatch was just a year prior to this, obviously it couldn't have been a big influence. But it is difficult not to compare it with Guy Ritchie's work, and I do say that it does feel very much inferior to me. It seems that they were trying to copy things that worked in that film. So it's like they were saying, we need different groups of people who are trying to get at this drug, and we need to make them really exaggerated characters. Like, just as an example, you've got Rhys Ifans in this film. He plays this, well, he's a nightclub owner and also a drug dealer, and he is quite possibly maybe even the most ridiculous character I've seen on screen. It just feels like he is on drugs all the time, but really taking up a notch. While it's funny and you can laugh at it, at some point you're just like, okay, you know, tone it down, because it's not really doing much for you. At times it makes you hard to think that it's not just crossing over into parody, really. In terms of range, you've got all sorts. Like I say, you've got crazy drug dealers, you have got Samuel Jackson as a chemist in a kilt, you've got football fans / criminals, you have Nazi skinheads, you have contract killers, assassins. Quite a wide range of people in this film in terms of stereotypes or archetypes, what have you. Like I say, it's just that the writing would have been a lot better if that had been improved, just to make the characters likeable, because that's something that I really feel you have in Guy Ritchie's films. Not only do the characters feel real, they're actually kind of relatable, I'll call it, and that's really lacking in this film. But it must be said that this film is absolutely carried by Sam Jackson. I like Robert Carlyle, and he is definitely fun, and he does great work here. I still feel that, interestingly, while the film was written for Lawrence Fishburne, or at least with Lawrence Fishburne in mind, it's hard to imagine this film without Sam Jackson, because he is just absolutely perfect and he really dominates the film. So Elmo McElroy is always cool, like I say, him in a kilt. This is actually how I advertise it to my wife. I say, look, it's a film with Sam Jackson in a kilt, surely you want to see this. But it's just his whole manner, his haircut, just how he talks. I mean, it's Sam Jackson, we know how he talks, and it just fits so perfectly in this film. Very well placed F-bombs, etc., all that kind of lovely stuff. Not just that, but he has one of the coolest post-credit scenes I've ever seen. So if you do watch the film, don't turn it off as soon as the credits roll, because actually it's not even a post-credits scene, it's not even a mid-credits, it's just a few seconds into the credits we suddenly get shown something additional to the film, which answers a question or two, and it's one of the best credit scenes I have ever seen. So funny, so hilarious, and it brings me to another point. Something that works really well in that end scene is the music. Now, the soundtrack is all over the place during the film, something I did not notice as a teenager, understandably. It's not done well, so you've got really bombastic, actiony music, then it'll sort of try and transition into sort of cool, sort of throbbing, intriguing music or so at times. It's particularly at the start where we're introduced to Elmo McElroy at the start. We sort of float into his lab, and suddenly it's this really intriguing music. Does not work well, and you have that quite often in the film. So the music does not gel well with what's happening on screen. We've got so many switches up and down, different tracks being played. Does not work. But in that credit scene, we've got Headrill as good as bad, and it's an amazing track. I really love it. As soon as it came on in the title screen when I put in the Blu-ray, I immediately started smiling. It was a bit similar to what I had with Swiss Army Man. When you have a song that sticks in your head so much that it brings a smile to you the first time you hear it a decade later, you know it's a good song. So to sum it up, while the writing's bad and the characters are all over the place and exaggerated and quite thin, I'll call it, as in no characterization or hardly any at all, it is a very fun ride. It's got lots of humour. You have really ridiculous situations, a lot of laugh out loud moments. Sam Jackson alone really makes this film worthwhile watching. Definitely check it out. It got really bad reviews back then, which I kind of understand, but this film, don't take it seriously and don't compare it to other ones. It is its own thing, really, because it wouldn't hold up to any other measure. So those are my thoughts on The 51st State. Have you seen the film? Do you plan to? I hope you do. Like I say, a lot of fun. If you have, or if you plan to do so, let me know down in the comments what you thought of the film, or any other things. What do you think of Sam Jackson in the kilt? Pretty cool thing, I think. I'll thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe to support the channel. That would really help me out and would be very appreciated. And I will catch you in the next video on Flying Wiener. Take care. Bye.